Good morning. We'll call today's Housing, Urban Development and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Vice Chair Sonier. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
Chair Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Vice Chair Sonier. We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, October 1st, 2024.
So move. Second. Second. His mic as
It was moved by Alderman Aldridge and second by Alderman Browning. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sonier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge. Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes.
Great, we've successfully approved the minutes. We'll move forward with board bills for review. Item number 1, board bill number 108. Alderman Michael Browning, you're recognized.
Thank you, committee, and thank you to everyone who has come here today to speak. So Board Bill 108 is a sales tax exemption for construction materials for a project that was actually approved by this board. The TIF note was approved for this project back in the 2022-2023 session. And we have the developer here. We also have SLDC here to speak to the project, so I will turn it over to them.
Thank you, Alderman. Good morning.
Good morning. If you can raise your, is anyone else going to speak as well?
Yeah, I think we probably
Okay, we could just do it all at once. That way I don't have to hold you guys up. Okay, you can raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Garrick Hamilton. I'm the Executive Vice President and General Counsel for Keeley Properties. And as the Alderman very adeptly pointed out, this is a companion piece of legislation to a project that was approved for TIF through Cortex Redevelopment District, which is the master developer for this TIF district, back in late 2022. We signed the redevelopment agreement, I believe, in the first or early second quarter of 2023. And since that time, we have been working with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on financial application. And finally, this summer, received our initial, what they kind of call the conditional approval letter. So now we are finally able to be back here in front of you, asking you to put in place this final piece of the financial puzzle for our project. I'll orient you here real quickly in the slides. This site that we are dealing with today is what's known as RPA 6, or a portion of RPA Cortex District. The next slide, if you would, yeah. There is the current condition. Kind of hard to make out a little bit. That is the current condition. It is currently of the former St. Louis metallizing site, completely cleared, nothing but parking, surface parking, and basically remnants of the old facility. If you would, the next slide. The next slide shows the current site plan. Although we are trying to reduce some of the parking, as you can see on this, this is definitely not the full vision of this site. I think the Alderman would agree the best use of this site is definitely a dense use, and we are designing it with the location of the building, with the infrastructure that we're installing, to accommodate a second building on the south or to the west, as well as structured parking in a second phase. So our vision for this site is definitely not a long-term surface parking, and we are eager to develop in the future, but as everyone knows, it is difficult to do deals at this point. So that project you see in front of you is not much change from what was approved by the Board of Aldermen in 2022. 145,000 square feet, first floor retail of about 2,000 square feet, 173 units for residential. That residential will include 17 units that will be priced to accommodate an AMI of 60% for families with 60% of AMI, I should say. The project also, in addition to the ordinance required TIF revenues to the Housing Trust Fund, it also includes a donation to the City of St. Louis's Housing Trust Fund of $250,000, and it produces $1 million in TIF revenue that it gets completely directed, not through us, but through Cortex to Great Rivers Greenway's Sarah Street improvement projects here, which are designed to connect Tower Grove, McRae, Botanical Heights, and Forest Park Southeast neighborhoods. So that is kind of the quick update and refresher of this project. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and obviously, phenomenal team behind me to help out too. So.
Did anyone else have any comments before we go into questions?
Thank you. Zach Wilson, SLDC. This was a long negotiated deal back in 2022, and SLDC is still very in favor of the project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go with Alderman Cone. We'll start with him. We'll move in. Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, you're able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Great, thank you. So I just want to first, say, I think we've made some really great strides with respect to incentives on the Central Corridor. Cortex, is an example that many in the region use as, how we can do things right. I don't think it's been any secret on my part that I've been very frustrated with the systems and structures and tools that we allow in the Central Corridor, but then don't allow those same types of incentives and tools in places like North St. Louis and Southeast City, where we have EGI 1, EGI 2 on the Economic Justice Index. And, for that reason, I have generally voted against things, in the Cortex and SLUD 353 area. But, certainly appreciate you all continuing to help grow the region and, contribute, as well with bringing jobs, bringing retail, and hopefully residential. I've mentioned this many times to WashU as well, and I hope that you all would take this under advisement. But it is very frustrating that when there is construction in that Cortex area, that sidewalks continually get blocked. And I would hope that this project, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback on my end, this project, that you all are mindful of that dynamic, especially given the, healthcare needs of folks, and then also that it is a very densely populated area as well. But WashU has certainly blocked its fair share of sidewalks, particularly along Forest Park Parkway, but it's happened along Clayton Avenue and other streets in that area as well. And it is very, very challenging, especially when you have folks that have wheelchairs or, parents that have strollers, and they end up walking in the streets because the sidewalks have been closed off for construction projects that last months, if not years.
Thank you, Alderman Cone, for pointing that out. I do think that's really important, and I do believe that it also falls on us as the leaders of our communities to make sure that we're keeping tabs on these projects and sure that we're encouraging whoever's developing these sites to keep accessibility in mind. It's something that I've certainly done as alder as things break ground to make sure I'm walking the site and making sure that sidewalks are remaining open and accessibility is still there. I also think it's important to note, and re-highlight that part of the deal here is to contribute $1 million to the Tower Grove connector. And that will be improving the Sarah Street corridor in a way that's going to really connect communities, especially how Forest Park Southeast has been separated from Cortex by the highway that was put in. And so we're really looking forward to seeing that improvement. And it's just a wonderful thing to see a development contributing to the built environment around it so that we can actually improve accessibility. I think walking in that spot right now, Sarah and Clayton, I would not describe as very pleasant. It definitely needs some improvement. It's right by the highway, and this development is definitely going to bring that improvement. So we're looking forward to it.
I agree with that, but there are still development projects that are happening in this area that are blocking off sidewalks for an entire block or more. And I appreciate the contribution that they're making towards improvements on Sarah, and would hope that they're mindful of those dynamics as they continue forward with their project.
Thank you. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Mr. Wilson, this part was not scored, so can you give any background on the scoring of this project in the past or anything we've seen?
Yes, this project was brought in front of the board in 2022 when our scorecards were not adopted. So we had a financial scorecard and it passed that, but it did not have a community scorecard and the more robust financial scorecard that we use today.
Can you just speak now to the, I know that you live and breathe those things. So some benefits this project have that towards the things on the scorecard, we talked about transit and the connections there, and, the type of AMI, 60% AMI housing that's available. Can you just speak a little bit to, your reflections on the project based on things that show up on the scorecard?
Yeah, the negotiations were led by SLDC and Alderman Peel at the time. The donation of $250,000 to Affordable Housing Trust Fund was a major issue. 17 units of affordable units, 60% AMI and below was another key piece. And then the addition to the trail was another win for the city. Plus, on top of this is currently a parking lot or vacant lot. So any type of improvements to this will immediately affect the school district and the taxing districts. So,
yeah, how much is the property tax on it now versus what it's expected to be?
Give me 1 second.
Bless you. Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
The crowd is saying $2,000.
So less than I'm. No.
Yes.
Feels like we're getting some improvement here. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that information, and the update, the information about the 1 million to Tower Grove connector. That's a new addition.
No, I think it's the infrastructure. TIFs usually pay for infrastructure, and that's helping pay for that piece too.
So that was always part of that specific project. Was
correct? Yes.
That was okay. Cool. Well, I'm really excited about that project and look forward to it being done. The one question I had was just why. This is probably for the developer. Sorry, can you please remind me of your name? Sorry.
It's Garrett Hamilton.
Hi, Ann. Project ICE. Can you tell me what how the ISIS?
No, it's Project Iris.
Iris. I wrote ISIS, which is wrong.
I'm not part of the brain trust on marketing. That is for
okay.
Sure. They don't entrust me with things that as important as that. So I think it was probably just trying to be a part of that community and trying to be part of that Cortex innovative type community. I think it was probably just eye-opening. Maybe that's speculation on my part.
Yeah, just that it's just an interesting name. I can imagine. There's a lot of beautiful architecture and interesting sculpture and art, and I can imagine is it the goal to be kind of using that kind of imagery?
We are very proud of our integration of art in our community. The Marlowe in the Central West End is something that I'm happy to give you a tour, any member of the committee, a tour of this. Very proud of how we've integrated art into that. And so, yes, I imagine that will be front and center.
I just thought the name was so interesting, very
Yeah.
catching of attention.
Thank you.
Of course, I said it wrong, but that's all. Okay, thank you for all those questions being answered and the information. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderman Aldridge,
No questions.
Vice Chair Sangay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I feel like even though I wasn't on the board, I think this was one of the most talked about development projects at the time. I remember reading all of the articles and all the talks about it, and it ended up being the first deal of its kind. So congratulations to you.
We're still trying. I appreciate it.
It's a process, but I
is.
think it's a solid start. I think it's a solid start. I was just curious, especially since we're a little further away, the infrastructure improvements that were named in the bill, it was just kind of worded infrastructure improvements. I know Alderman Cone asked, can you just talk to us a little bit about what you have done for infrastructure improvements in the area? And also I'm curious about the maintenance of those infrastructure improvements that you made.
Sure. So our project, and when I say our project, this would include what you'll see is probably defined as a project, the public realm improvements. Those are going to be improvements that are literally either on our private property or on the immediate right of way. So that's all new sidewalks throughout that area, all new streetscape lighting. I believe part of our project even includes improvements to that intersection itself, so a little bit off. Anything in a street right of way obviously is going to be maintained by the city. Although I believe part of that project with the north-south connector, which is completely outside of our private project, that is the Great Rivers Greenway connections for Sarah Street, that would be maintained, I believe, I'm not sure if that's a public-private partnership or whether GRG is cooperating with the city, but that'll obviously be a collaborative effort there. So the improvements on our property, including sewer relocation, all kinds of different things, those will obviously be privately maintained.
Do you have a cost estimate of how much you've invested into those improvements, even if it's very rough?
We do not have that yet. I mean, no, I don't have that off the top of my head. I would say, I don't remember what our project site costs were. By itself, the project site costs were at least $500,000, but then all of the upgrades to the improvements around it, I think were at least $3 million or so. And that's just to the private area. That's not to what's going on Sarah Street with Great Rivers.
Thank you. I'm just making that point because one of the other conversations that Alderwoman Schweitzer is actually talking about sort of with our streets and infrastructure, the need, and Alderman Brennan as well, talking about the need for like a maintenance plan for our streets and talking about the need to coordinate with other people. And this is just an instance, I hadn't thought about it until I was reading this, that, there are development projects that are happening where people make these grand investments and improvements, but unless the alder themselves come back and invest in that money in just a couple of years, you can't see it as much because there is no maintenance plan or proactive coordinating with other departments. So I just wanted to put that point on the record. My other question is, there was mention of a parking garage. Is that parking garage under your steward or under the treasurer's office?
Not under this phase. If we were to develop the southern half of that or to the west, there might have to be a parking garage incorporated onto that property as part of it, or we would collaborate with Cortex, who has parking garages in the area. BJC owns property in that area. Those are options for cooperation with neighbors. It does not necessarily mean that there would have to be a parking garage on the site, but until we can identify what can be used on that southern site and financially viable, unfortunately, I can't present.
No worries. You might have clarified this already, but this is going to go pass through ENA?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, he might have clarified it. And then my other question, I just had and this might be for my own reasons. I served on the TIF commission for a time period when I was on the board of education. The backer of the bonds, I guess my question is, if something goes wrong and the bonds have to be, paid back because there's a shortfall, who would be responsible for that?
Well, and I think the bond council and the brain trust behind me are kind of collaborating on something themselves. But the quick answer to that is, this is not a private or a public obligation of the city of St. Louis whatsoever. This is literally a situation where the bondholder is the developer. So we are funding these bonds through rents that's paid through a leasehold structure, and bond counsel will step in here if I'm misstating anything. but it is a bond structure where we're paying rents. Those are the service on the bonds, and the bonds are held by both us and payable to us. So it is not something that it serves as any kind of economic burden on the city of St. Louis.
And it would be you all's responsibility if there's a shortfall.
And if there's a shortfall, which there won't be because we're living ourselves, and it would collapse at the end. If I miss.
Excellent. Sorry, I guess I do have a few. I noticed also in the sales tax, and it might have changed between when you came before us and now. In the financial analysis, and this might be for Mr. Wilson, it says that the sales tax exemption was $0.00, but then I read in this bill that there is a waive on the sales tax, so I was just wanting clarity to where we're at with that piece.
There is a construction sales piece, and that might be an error on that financial scorecard, the previous one. Apologies.
That's going to be generated by on-site use, so the restaurants.
So I would have to look at the scorecard they're referring to, but the sales tax exemption incentive really doesn't hit the city of St. Louis because most of the materials that's bought out of the city of St. Louis, so it's out of municipalities or out of state. So we liked using this incentive because it's at least impactful for the city of St. Louis.
So you're saying it was just an error in the updating of it, but the financial scorecard was updated? That was maybe just something?
I would have to go look back at the initial scorecard and see what they're referring to, but usually sales tax, the sales tax incentive is almost built in all deals over $5 million now.
I guess it would take me to my larger question. Was there an updated financial analysis that was done, or was this financial analysis pulled from the last version of the bill?
It was probably pulled from the last version. This was a very long, drawn-out process to get this deal done back in 2022.
Okay. My last question is probably for the developer themselves. I was just curious. I'm very happy to see the 60% AMI unit. When you guys do that, how do you go about making sure that folks in those income ranges are in the unit?
So I believe that is something we work on with SLDC, and that is the rent target is set by I'm trying to remember what is sorry.
It's HUD. They sent out a yearly report on what.
I'm just asking on our end for tenants who are in it, what do we do to make sure that people in those income ranges are living in it? I know how it's set.
Oh, okay. That's really dealt in the redevelopment agreement. Madeline from our office who presented will be getting current tax rent rolls and make sure those rents are being charged at those amounts.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Did you all have any closing remarks, or Alderman Browning, did you have any closing remarks?
I think there's not any outstanding questions from the committee. I think we spoke to most of the questions that had been sent to me, but can the committee let me know if they have any more questions?
Thank you, Alderman. We got an email before the meeting started. Okay, it's green. Can you guys hear me? Okay. And I sent it to you. You said you'd speak to the questions that were in it, so I would just love to give you that opportunity now.
Sure. So a couple of the questions that are being asked involved a lack of a financial analysis that's been updated from the 2022-2023 session. I think Mr. Spikerman, wherever he went, can speak to that. And then the other one was about the role played by bonds issued through the Industrial Development Authority, and I think that doesn't apply, but I'll let Mark speak to that.
Thank you. My name is Mark Spikerman. I'm with Gilmore and Bell, outside counsel to SLDC. Typically how these are scored, and I'll be honest, I don't know exactly the inputs that went into the 2022 analysis, but usually with the sales tax exemption, it's really a reduction in project costs. They determine their project cost, assuming that they won't be paying sales tax on construction materials. So it's built in that way. You'll also notice attached to the board bill is a industrial revenue plan and cost benefit analysis. And there's assumptions in that plan, assuming that roughly 20% of materials would be subject to city sales and use tax. The other 80% would be purchased outside the city of St. Louis and not subject to the city's taxes. Based on that assumption, you'll see on the last page, the impact to the city is estimated at roughly $200,000. So not a big hit to the city. 80% of the value of the incentive comes from sales taxes that would have been charged by the state or other jurisdictions wherever those materials would be purchased. I also understand there's some questions regarding what we call Chapter 100 bonds. These are, sometimes they're called conduit bonds or even paper bonds. These bonds are not issued by the Industrial Development Authority of the City of St. Louis. The IDA plays no role. These bonds are strictly there to facilitate the sales tax exemption. They are not payable from any tax revenues. They're payable only from lease revenues paid by the developer during a construction period when the project is under construction. A copy of the plan and cost benefit analysis was sent to all the taxing districts. That per state statute, that analysis has to go out to the taxing districts at least 20 days before final passage of the board bill. So we're on track for that, assuming you don't pass this for a couple weeks. You can pass out a committee, but not pass out of the Board of Aldermen.
And I think the last point in that email that you all received was that there was not adequate notice to give into this, but that period of notice does not apply to sales tax exemptions. And so that's something I actually checked with our team about before I requested this committee meeting, because I wanted to make sure we were following proper notice, but that does not apply, and we are okay to hear it and pass it today. So with that, I'll just add that, and emphasize again that this is the bill addressing the sales tax exemption, so we're not really relitigating the whole project so much as just a little portion before they are able to proceed, and the impact to the city is very minimal, considering that most construction materials are purchased outside the city. So, given the benefits of this project, the $1 million to the infrastructure improvements, the $250,000 contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, both of which outweigh probably the impact to city taxes. So we're really looking at a good deal for the city, and we're excited to put housing on a vacant lot to start giving off more taxes to help bolster our tax base, as well as finally bring housing to Cortex at this really dead corner right now. This really kind of unpleasant, as I said, place to be in the ward right now. But we're really excited to turn that into something productive and hope that this is a benefit to the whole area.
Excuse me, Alderwoman. We have a public person who wants to speak.
Okay. Okay, we'll Vice Chair Sanye, and then we'll open it up for public comment.
I think this is really for Mr. Wilson, I guess whatever alders at the time. It's not really a question. I just want to go on the record and say in the future, I would really like to see an updated financial analysis or something that can tell us, where the project is. I think we get the spirit of the bill. I think everything checks out. I just think we owe it to the community for them to see where a project currently is so that they know that we're not talking to them about things that were in the past or 2 years ago, but now that certain benefits have been in place, here have been some of the actual tangible outcomes. So I'm okay for whatever Alderman Browning decides to do for today, but in the future, if we don't have an updated financial analysis, I won't vote for it.
Oh, I completely understand, and hopefully this may be one-off. So since we're in the middle of changing a lot of things, all projects moving forward should have everything you have wished.
Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Wilson, how long would it take to create a financial analysis project?
It could be pretty quickly. It shouldn't take very long at all.
Okay, and then to the speakers, I know, and when you say quickly, like a week, 2 weeks?
No, it should be less than maybe a week at most.
Okay, and then to one of the speakers said it's okay to get this out of committee today, not pass it up to the full board. So there could be, and I'm not trying to hold it up, but there could be an opportunity where you would be able to create a financial analysis to be able to come back so that we could be able to see that, and it still would be on timeline with the project getting done.
So what we could do is, I would be happy to wait to perfect this if we don't have the financial analysis done. I mean, I'd still like to move forward today just to keep this on track and give some assurance to the developer that we can actually get this done. These financing projects are delicate things. We want to make sure that everyone knows what the picture looks like as we head into attempting to break ground. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking to break ground next couple months, right?
It'll be in the first quarter of 2025. However, we are going through that HUD approval process where I need to start locking those things into place. And obviously, the fourth quarter of this year is imperative to that. I think our hard application for hard commitment is due around Thanksgiving. So even delaying it a couple of weeks could, at least push us out to our ability to file that application back with the U.S. Department of Housing. So.
Absolutely, and don't want to do that. I think we've been down that road last session with delaying it when developers needed a hard commitment, but it got delayed.
I appreciate that.
Yes. But you did mention, I think the gentleman in the back, I'm sorry if I mentioned your name. What is the delay of wanting to say we can get it out of committee, but don't necessarily need to pass it at the full board? What's that delay in?
The statute requires that Exhibit A to the board bill, that cost benefit analysis, be sent to the taxing districts at least 20 days before final approval by the Board of Aldermen. We still
need to get the report one way or another.
Right. So as the alderman suggested, if that report comes before perfection, you're still not likely passing this finally out of the Board of Aldermen until well after the 20 days has passed.
Okay. And so, Zach, when do you plan to get that financial analysis? So it still sounds like one way or another we need to get the financial analysis, or the developer needs to.
If everything looks good, we could probably get it within the next few days. So, yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully, today's Tuesday. Hopefully before Friday.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, that should be before even second reading. So again, I'm happy to make that commitment to you all that, if that's something we all want to see, I'm happy to hold it for perfection if we don't have it yet, but it sounds like we'll have it with plenty of time before that vote. So I think we have a member from the public speak, and then I'll close.
Madam Clerk, can you call the person up to speak online? They can raise their right hand.
Let me.
Mr. Conley, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the HUD's committee, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Trying to cut to the chase on this. I mean, the original board bill facilitating this project in RPA 6 had its HUD's hearing 23 months ago. And the idea that we're now here today and all of a sudden we don't have a full updated financial analysis, which if Mr. Wilson's accurate, if it can be done within 48 hours, why wasn't it done before this bill was introduced? The line item for this project from Board Bill 114 has a 0 next to sales tax exemption. So, the original approval is predicated on certain benefits for the developer and for Cortex, but, the goalposts have changed yet again. And while Mr. Speicherman has spoken to the bonds associated with the sales tax exemption, in the bigger picture of the Cortex TIF, the city's industrial development authority is issuing bonds that basically give Cortex cash with a lot more flexibility on where it spends it on infrastructure. And Cortex has not been transparent. You look at their two most recent impact reports on their website, and they show expenses broken down and they don't show revenue. You've got to go to the 990 statement to show they had over $20 million in revenue in 2022, over 11 million in 2023. I don't know how much of it came through the IDA bonds, but you know, we as the public are kept in the dark on so many things. And it seems like, you know, the benefit of the doubt is always on the developer. You know, it's like, I've got to meet this deadline, I've got to meet that deadline. You know, when did the developer come back to SLDC? You know, was it last month? Was it 6 months ago to say, hey, we're back on track. We think we can get this started in 2024. You know, when did that happen? So I just feel that, you know, it's always a rush, and it's not fair on the public. It's not fair on the taxing districts. You know, this bill was introduced on Friday. If the taxing districts are supposed to get 20 days notice, why can't the public get more than 2 business days notice? To, you know, I went back, I listened to the HUD's hearing from 2 years ago. I made my own personal recording of the TIF Commission hearing. That TIF Commission that dealt with this project, you know, the TIF Commission hasn't met since that hearing, which was September 2022. The minutes haven't been approved. I was able to get a copy of the draft minutes, and a 2.5-hour hearing is summarized in 1 paragraph. So the transparency around these projects, I still think, is very weak. I would really encourage you as a committee to hold this bill for a future hearing where more of the details are available to the public beforehand. That's all I have to say. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Connolly? Okay, Alderman Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Not necessarily for you, but I did look at Board Bill 114, and it does, you're correct that it says, doesn't list any value or project financing for a construction sales tax exemption, but you said it was baked in. Can someone speak to that?
Yes, we would build it into our projection of the budget for hard costs. It would not show that on. We would not have that as a separate line item, and I can't speak to the document that's being looked at this moment, but we would build it into our construction cost estimate. Be there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Cortex RPA 6 financial impact report. It's attachment to fiscal note, Board Bill numbers 114 and 115. It says sources and use summary, project financing, and then there's a list of the project financing and amounts on one side. And then the line that says estimated value construction sales tax exemption has a little dash.
Yeah, that's the old form. We can easily update that, and we'll have it for you in the next few days.
So that number would have something different now?
Yes, we could easily put that in, but usually it's the savings, but we can easily put that amount in that category.
Okay.
And it won't change the outputs too much or a little at all, so, but we'll be happy to put that.
Yeah, I just think when, you know, words matter. So when we talk about this was included in the financial analysis and doesn't have any information on that,
Totally
I would not say it was included in the financial analysis from what I'm seeing, but it was maybe considered, but marked as not having been any sort of consideration as a cash value, negative or positive. That would be part of that line.
Completely understand, and
Okay.
we'll have the report to you in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Just to respond to one thing, we haven't had a TIF commission meeting because we have had no TIF projects in those amount of years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge.
I guess this is not for Mr. Connolly, but again, just flagging. I'm trying to understand what is the rush if this was just filed Friday, and there's still several documentations that is needed to be provided before we make a decision. It sounds like even when you get the document, you still have to wait 20 days. So if I'm just hearing it right, once you get the financial analysis.
No, I believe the 20 days is on. The 20 days is on that report that is actually included in the plan, if I'm mistaken. So it is it's the economic analysis that's in the plan itself right now. So that 20 days is ticking.
And then you would need insurance to your financial people by, you said you love by Thanksgiving, correct?
Well, let's see, if we get the approval by Thanksgiving, it's a 10-day wait for the, Her Honor's signature, and then I believe it's 30 days after that for effective date of the ordinance. That puts us into the first quarter of 2020. And
So-
ENA is in that process as well, so.
So
obviously-
has this went through ENA?
No, it would go through, there you go.
So we still would have to put this on hold anyway because ENA didn't approve it. Technically, usually,
You're trying to do it perfection, correct? I believe you would prefer to have that conversation, or have that held to perfection, correct? So yes, it would be held to perfection.
so ENA, do we know what ENA's meeting?
You know,
Have they officially announced it for this month?
The documents have been dropped off. I've not seen the agenda yet for ENA for October.
Okay. So assuming that they would meet, let's just say next week, usually I'll meet on Tuesday, I think it's like Wednesday or Thursday. It would still be, even if this was held so we can get the documents, I think what some are saying, just to make sure that I have full faith in the alderman that he always do his due diligence, but it does seem to be like we don't have the documents. This was filed last Friday, and this haven't even went through ENA, which typically that happens at the board, and it is on hold until ENA approves it. But again, I'm trying to just figure out what is the rush if it still has to go through several stages. You still need to provide financial information. This still has to go through ENA, and it was filed last Friday. So why are we just moving so quickly on this? And we could still get it done by your deadline as a developer by Thanksgiving time.
And I'll defer to the alderman in terms of sharing of his bill,
So ENA's meeting on the, ENA's meeting on the 23rd, so that's 2 weeks from now. So the bill would be, even if we get it done today, it would be second read, so it's already has to sit on perfection next week. And then the alderman could be able to pull it off of perfection by the 25th. But if we still get it done next week, the alderman, it would be second read on the 18th. And then when ENA meets on the 23rd, it still moves all in the same time frame of perfection by the 25th. One way or another, it's going to be sitting either if we get information, or it's going to be sitting to ENA meets on the 23rd, which then, all that being said, there's, in my opinion, it doesn't seem to be like it's a need to get done today because it's still going to be held for 2 weeks.
Sure. I guess the question is, probably for the chair, do we anticipate having a meeting next week, or are we just going to come back just to do this? Would the financial analysis really change anything about this? Or are we kind of just looking to have numbers, which again, we're going to get them because you've asked for them, but they weren't required to be present today for that. So that's why we didn't have it today. But, we want to be transparent, and I completely agree with the comments about, posting and making sure that meetings are available. But what essentially that's doing is relitigating a project that was approved 2 years ago. And this is simply discussing the sales tax exemption that is being asked for. In that case, the financials are there for us. What I expect we'd see if we updated some of those numbers is that because construction costs have gone up so much in the last 2 years, that you'd see some bigger numbers there, but nonetheless, they still would not outweigh the benefit that this project brings. And it still remains true that this largely affects the county and not the city. So when we talk about the notification of taxing districts, we're not talking about SLPS because they're not actually affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about any of these institutions that we really want to protect because they're not affected by this. This is really just sales tax that we aren't collecting anyway.
Okay, and we may have one because I may need to speak to the chair about a SID to probably have a hearing on that next week. But all that being said, I'm just trying to figure out again why so quickly. So I'm assuming you filed this last week on our deadline, and then it was first read, and I'm just trying to just figure out why so fast. What is the, I don't know if the developer said we need to get this done like next week or.
I wouldn't describe our process as fast ever. Obviously, like between first reading and then committee hearing and second reading and perfection and third reading, you've got a month, there. But I would say the reason I introduced and moved this forward is because time often is for developers, making sure that they have that predictability in the process. And as Garrick has, you're on my left, has mentioned, they need those numbers so they can update HUD and actually get to a place where they know that this project is financeable. I don't want to go on get on a soapbox here, but I do find the lack of predictability in our process to be frustrating because we really don't understand how development works at this board when we put developers through the third degree after they've already been through a process that is quite rigorous in the first place. Now this development is one of those ones that's weird because it existed before we put in the more stringent requirements and the more thorough examination process with Board Bill 64 those couple years ago. But it still holds true that this is a really good project for the city. There's lots of big wins that were kind of carved out into this deal. So we're just trying to give the developer that assurance that we are, as a city, interested in having this building. And
I get that. I would say, that energy necessarily isn't always there. When it was the Midas, we had all the information, all the financial analysis, all of everything provided from SODC, because at that time, the scorecard different from this project. But when developers like, I needed this time, it's like, well, we gotta wait because we want to make sure we're doing right for the city. So and at the same time, going back to it's still going to be, if you're saying we want to give the developer insurance, we still have to wait anyway because ENA is not meeting to the 23rd.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think if not willing to pass this out today, then that is the direction we'll have to go in. But again, I think we are giving this, we're winding the clock back to like 2 years ago, where we're kind of criticizing how this was passed through back then. And I think at this stage, we're really just talking about the sales tax exemption, right? So it's not like the Midas project in that, that's the whole deal. It's not anything bigger than that. There's certainly a lot that goes into this project. And, I just want to make sure that Keeley and these developers that still develop in our city are getting the right process and, making sure that we give them the expedient process that helps them do their jobs as well. So, I think that's something I'd be looking for an indication from the committee is whether you prefer to wait till next week or not. But if the votes are there today, I also don't see any harm in passing this out today because you have my personal guarantee that I'm not going to move this past perfection without that information.
Thank you, Alderman.
Vice Chair Sanye.
I just wanted to say I'm going to make sure in the future, because we just talked and we didn't talk about this bill. So next time I'll make sure we carve out time when we talk hey, what's coming? I do understand that this bill did not fall out of a coconut tree, that it came from 2 years ago and it has some history. But I do think too, when we bring legislation forward, we feel very passionate about it. We want to get it done. I mean, when I did TADA, I thought that would be fairly simple. I thought it was okay, developers need to pay their taxes. But when I was in front of this body, we talked about the language and changes that we wanted to see. And, I feel like one of the things I've learned about you, Alderman Browning, is you really do appreciate the process. You really do like getting in and getting to the words that matter, as Ann Schweitzer said, and paying attention to detail. I just don't, I think given the discrepancies that we've already noted in this report that's not updated, and given some of the misinformation, I would feel more comfortable holding this for next week. I agree that it's not, I wouldn't say it's it's rushed because our process is a slow process, is how it is. But I do think that we've been on the other sides, and you just want to always be able to have the insurance to know that you followed the process, you've done your due diligence. So I would feel much more comfortable taking a vote with all of the information. And again, I think it's important we treat all projects the same. So I don't want to like vote for this and we don't have all the information, and then there's another time where I want to hold that line, but I didn't hold it here.
You have any? Yeah.
I thank you, Chairwoman. Yeah, it looks like, I don't know what all the votes are on the committee, but it could be a half and half if it's moved today. It looks like that's a possibility, so it might make sense to just hold it, to not be in a point where you've got to reintroduce. I don't know that you want to force just counting stuff over here.
I appreciate the sensitivity to this, and I do feel that the numbers, at least from our perspective, were included in the analysis in 2022 when this was being reviewed. It was obviously just in a different line item, but to your point, I understand the interest in being clear about this. I'm also quite certain, based upon my understanding of our pro forma on this project, that you're not going to see this project as being out of line with what you're expecting. In fact, this is a very difficult project for it. It's the reason why we're going through the HUD financing, because it allows us to take advantages of that program and produce higher yields for the proceeds of that. So I don't think it'll cause us too much. I would agree with the Alderman that time kills all deals. I don't think over the next week that time will be killing this deal, but at the same time, the reason for the immediacy, the reason for the urgency, I should say, is because of that fact that there are so many uncertainties in development right now. As you guys, I think, had a great conference on about a week ago on that very topic in front of this committee. There's so many issues out there. The moment I can start ticking off fewer things that are uncertainties towards a project, the better. We are spending a lot of money with HUD, with the advisors going through that process. It is a very expensive process. There's a few lawyers in the room today that are on the clock as well. So I appreciate that. It does increase those costs. We want to be sympathetic to that. I do want to, if I may, respond to one thing just to make sure this body is very clear about this. This incentive, other than the sales tax exemption that the Alderman has brought up, yields no additional cash dollars to this project or to the pro forma of the developer, other than the savings on the construction materials. There is not a bond fund that is producing cash to a developer for this. It is definitely what I believe the bond council referred to as a conduit bond. I'm not taking, I can't remember what the bond number is. I think it's $40 million or something. I'm not taking $40 million of the city of St. Louis's money, putting it into a privately owned project. That is not the case at all. So I think I just want to be very clear about that. This is not changing the incentive package that the city, we have not asked for another dollar in TIF on this, even though it has become even tougher over the last year and a half with construction costs. Every day it becomes tougher. So we're not asking for anything more on that.
Yeah, so, with that, I guess we'll hold the bill today. Alderwoman?
Before you make that decision, I'm trying to find out if SLDC, how soon, you said that you could take a couple of days to get this?
Yeah, we can rush it and hopefully late Wednesday or Thursday, possibly.
Okay, so would the committee be open to having a quick Zoom meeting in order for us to try to keep it on track for our colleague, possibly Friday morning before the meeting or Thursday afternoon? If you would be open to that, or would you rather hold it for another? It's your bill, so it's your decision. If you want to hold it for another week, we can, but I also wanted to offer out of respect for you and your leadership, if we can do it, get it done.
It doesn't really matter Friday, Tuesday, I don't think. We're going to have to pay the lawyers again and all that anyway. So I think it's, I appreciate you trying to speed it up a little, but if we have something else to hear next Tuesday, there's no reason why can't do this next Tuesday as well.
Yeah, just for clarity, we didn't have anything this week, and when you wanted to have it here, we were going to have it here because I'm not going to use this committee as a tool to not be part of the process moving forward. So that's why I said yes to today, and I would say yes if you want to try to do it to make sure that you can hopefully have a second read on Friday, or I would say yes to next Tuesday. This is not my committee, this is our committee, this is the city's committee, so it's the city's work. So, but this is your bill and your leadership, so I'm yielding to you on that.
Yeah, I think as Alderman Aldridge pointed out, that the timeline here would require us to kind of take a step anyway. So let's just hold it for next Tuesday and proceed on that schedule.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Do we have any resolutions for review?
We have none.
Committee discussions?
We have none.
Acknowledgement of any written testimony?
We have none.
Okay, any announcements? Other than the fact that we will now have another HUD's committee hearing next Tuesday to hear Board Bill 108. All members were present this morning. With that, Vice Chair Sanya.
I just wanted to announce that there will be a planning commission meeting tomorrow, and there will be a zoning bill up that talks about non-traditional housing. So if there's anyone that is at home or that is wanting to tune into that, I get emails several a week asking about this topic. So just want to make sure to let the public know that the planning commission meeting tomorrow, there will be a zoning bill that talks about amending our zoning for non-traditional housing.
All right, with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second, previous roll.
We are adjourned. Have a blessed day.